Good evening, welcome along if you're just joining us. Coming up in a moment, we're going to find out more about the story of a Gloucestershire woman who's facing jail in Dubai over a WhatsApp message she sent to her flatmate. What on earth's going on there? More on that on the way in just a moment. This is an incredible story. A Gloucestershire woman is facing jail and a fine of up to £100,000 in Dubai over a WhatsApp message she sent to her flatmate. The woman, whose name hasn't yet been released, is 31 years of age and is a human resources manager. It stems back to an argument with her flatmate in October. Her flatmate apparently made a complaint about a message with expletives in it. Well, now the woman's phone is being examined by police in Dubai, and she's been warned that she could face 2 years in jail and a £100,000 fine. Radha Stirling is the chief executive of the organisation Detained in Dubai and joins us on the programme. Thank you ever so much for joining us. Is this a common occurrence, or is this a very strange one even for Dubai?
Well, Steve, thanks for having me. It is actually a common occurrence, but most of these cases don't make it to press. Now, I think the last time we were really talking about this issue was with Radha Stirling, where she was charged with saying horse face on a Facebook post made from the UK, but she was charged in the UAE. So this is actually a very common occurrence, and I think it's the single biggest threat to tourists, investors and expats who venture into the UAE. And it's definitely a law that needs to be revised by the country, who's really trying to attract British tourists. And I'm surprised that the FCO hasn't done more to sort of push for that change. This woman is absolutely distraught. She was told last night by the police that she faced, as you said, 2 years in prison and a £100,000 fine, which she has no chance of being able to pay. And if she doesn't pay that £100,000 fine, if it were issued to her, she would be detained indefinitely. She would never be able to leave the UAE if she couldn't pay that fine. So it's actually a more drastic situation than any of us can possibly imagine. And she's just been in tears this past few days that I've been speaking with her.
So, as I said, we don't know her name, but we know she's 31 years of age. She's from Gloucestershire. Was she over there on holiday? Was she working out there? How long has she been out there?
She'd been out there since 2018. She's never had any problems in her entire life. She was living in an apartment with 3 other women, and, you know, lockdown pressures and everything. They weren't able to go out to work, and she had to work from home. She didn't, you know, her bedroom's quite small. She didn't have any space to work, so she ended up trying to work on the communal dining table, which just caused a lot of friction in the family, essentially. And they were having an argument, and yes, she said a rude word to this woman on WhatsApp, and, you know, basically moved on. It's been several months since then, and she had actually sent all of her furniture, you know, all of her belongings back to the UK. She was intending to return to England and start a new job here. And she arrived at the airport and was suddenly told there's a case against you, there's a travel ban. They didn't tell her what it was about at that point, and then they shoved her from police station to police station where she was trying to get information, and she was finally told it was about this, you know, 3 months gone WhatsApp message that she sent to her flatmate. And it's, you know, this is the kind of law where you have husbands and wives and colleagues and friends and even school students we've seen, you know, 14, 15-year-olds having an argument on WhatsApp, and it ends up at the police station. So Suddenly she was confronted with this, and she tried to cooperate, and she gave a statement to the police, and she said, yeah, I did it. I'm really sorry. And they asked, did she know the law? And she said, no, of course, if I'd known the law, I wouldn't have said that. It just came out in the heat of the moment. Is there anything that I can do? Can I pay a fine? You know, anything like that. And they said, no, try to resolve it with your Ukrainian flatmate. So she approached her and said, look, you know, I'm travel banned. I'm going through a disaster here. Can you help me out? I'm really sorry. Can you withdraw the case? But she has refused to withdraw the case. So in that instance, and most of them do refuse to, you know, once a police complaint is made, they want to see it through. And that means that she could be, in a best case scenario, struggling with a foreign, you know, legal system where she doesn't even understand what they're saying half the time for the next 3 to 4 months. And especially with COVID, it's going on even longer. The police confiscated her telephone, even though she admitted the crime, to do a forensic analysis to prove whether or not she said this rude word on WhatsApp. So that in itself is a process that can take days, weeks, or often months actually to come back with that, and they don't even start the legal process until they receive that back. So it
But
just
she
makes
has
no
admitted that,
sense
I guess.
whatsoever.
She has admitted that, but I guess there could be something else on that phone which could get her in more trouble if they've now got a phone.
Absolutely, and that's potentially what they're looking for, is what else has she maybe said? Has she shared a charity? Has she criticised the government? Has she said anything negative about the UAE, or are there any explicit photos on her phone, that kind of thing? And they can also use that to go and investigate other people that she might have been in contact with and charge them. So it's a very, very serious matter at this point.
So you're with the organisation, chief executive of the organisation Detained in Dubai. What are you able to do to help her out, Radha?
Well, I mean, at this point, and as we did with Scott Richards and Lala Sharavish, we're trying to lobby the British government to get involved. And they have come back and they've said, OK, we're looking into this. We're trying to speed things up, but we don't have any influence in the UAE, which is an absolute facade of a position that they keep perpetuating to the media, that they have no influence. The UK and the UAE have been strong allies for decades now. We have mutual trade agreements, security agreements, we have legal enforcement agreements. There's no way that the UK has no influence. And we see other countries like Malaysia, we see the US and Canada, Australia, intervening in cases where it's clearly unjust that that person should be kept there for such an indefinite period of time and potentially face jail in a situation like this. We see other countries getting involved, but we see the UK saying, oh, we don't have any power, which is, it's really disturbing. And also the UK is not really warning citizens before they go. We're seeing, on every other page of a newspaper, we're seeing advertisements for visitors to go to Dubai, but we're not seeing any warnings to citizens. So if you go there, you could be criminalised under these laws. And I would say that almost every person, every British national who travels to Dubai is going to have committed a violation of these cybercrime laws that are really all-encompassing of every social media post that you've ever made would criminalise you, and you could be subject to these same proceedings. But I don't see the British government warning citizens and not helping them either when they get into trouble.
She's not happy for her name to be released yet, but I guess if she wants this to become public, for some sort of momentum to build behind this, she's going to have to go public herself, isn't she?
Well, absolutely. She was really worried because she was starting a new job back here in the UK and with a top 5 accountancy firm. So she hasn't wanted to give her name yet, but she thought, look, I'll give it a few days. If it resolves itself in that time, I don't want to, splash my name all over the world's media. But obviously, this is some situation that could go on for a long time. And Lala Sharavesh herself struggled with going to the media. She didn't want to be on the front page of anywhere. But when she did, she realised everything changed in the UAE. As soon as she went public, absolutely the whole situation changed. And she came home and she realised that if she hadn't gone public, and the British Embassy often warns people not to go public, even though it's detrimental to them not to do so. But if she hadn't gone public, she would probably have still been there.
So is she being held at the moment? Where is she living?
Well, at the moment, I mean, she shipped everything back and she shipped all of her summer clothes back as well. So she's stuck in Dubai with her British winter clothes, unfortunately. And she's sleeping on the sofa of a friend, but, that can't last very much longer. So if she is stuck there for the time that it takes to go to court and everything, she'll be having to fork out, money for hotel bills, for lawyers. And this is extreme amounts as well. We're talking about sort of £30,000.
Wow. And no court date as yet?
No court date. In fact, no movement is going to happen until they get that forensic evidence back after looking at her phone. They're not even going to book a court date. So this kind of thing, even, as I said, even in the best case scenario that she gets a small fine, we're talking 4 months. But, in a worst case scenario, we're actually talking about 2 years in prison and £100,000 fine, which would see her detained in the UAE for the rest of her life.
Wow, unbelievable. Radha, thank you very much for joining us on the programme, and well, good luck to you with the kind of work that you're doing there to try and help out this situation. Radha Stirling, Chief Executive of the organisation Detained in Dubai, as yet an unnamed Gloucestershire woman, 31 years of age, Human Resources Manager, who is out there in Dubai at the moment, facing a fine of up to £100,000 and a jail sentence of 2 years. And if she can't pay that £100,000, you're kept in jail until you can pay it. So she could be there forever and a day. Interesting one. That one, we'll follow that with interest here on BBC Radio Gloucestershire.